Hello. Have you ever wondered what are the other factors that are responsible for a child's cooperation and ability to learn as a normal human being? Some of us always think that preparing a child to school and making sure he's all ready, he has all he needs, he's properly dressed, is all we have to do as parents and as educators. Understanding what the child needs, whether in the learning environment or physically or materially, is all we need to think about in getting that child prepared to learn. There are so many other social factors that we have to consider when we look at what it needs to help a child to learn. Have we ever wondered what it means to a child when that child thinks to him or herself, what is my worth? What is my personal value? What's my self-esteem? No human being is born with a high or low self-esteem. They have to learn how to feel good about themselves. So it's very important to help a child to develop self-esteem. Self-esteem in a child has to do with the overall sense of personal value, or how the child actually thinks about him or herself. Self-esteem is the way a child or an individual thinks and feels about themselves and how they do things, and the perception they have innately about themselves, and how that shapes the way they think about themselves, the way they think about the world, and the perception they have generally. When a child has that self-esteem in the proper place, not low, and high enough to satisfy a child's curiosity to learn, then that child would have just been ready to go into the world and champion his or her own cause. So self-esteem is basically that ability in a child to think positively about him or herself, the way the child perceives who he or she is, especially in the eyes of the world. As adults, there's so many things that can help a child build his or her self-esteem. One, we have to ensure that we show the children a lot of love. When human beings feel loved, they feel good about themselves, and that gives them good self-esteem. We have to let them know that we value them, we value their efforts. Rather than seeking perfection from them, whatever they do, let's try to make them feel good about it. Even if they haven't gotten to the bar line that we expect, let's encourage them to continue, and that makes them feel good about themselves. As a Montessori directress, you have to understand that motivating the kids through self-esteem would make them always want to work with materials on and on and on. We have to encourage them to try new challenges, make plans for things they would like to accomplish. So we have to understand that we must encourage children towards believing in themselves, encourage them to voice out their opinions. We shouldn't allow kids to be timid. When you allow them to voice out their ideas, their opinions, and express the way they feel, they become confident, they have that esteem, and they're able to cooperate through the learning process. We have to set a good example in ourselves. So the kids want to mirror out who we are and try to live that kind of life. So we must understand that as well. We must, motivate them and tell them we appreciate them. However, we must not overpraise them as we try to build their self-esteem, because we have to think of competence as we're building their self-esteem. We must allow children take healthy risks. So failure, we should counsel the kids to understand that failure is just an opportunity to do better. So they don't always feel that when I don't get it right, that means I'm nobody, I can never make it. No, because children would always not do what is right. They would always not get it right. So we have to make them understand what failure is from the aspect of being an opportunity. We should allow them to make their own choices. Then they have that motivation and they are convinced about what we're doing. That also builds their self-esteem. We should help them to understand that they can actually take part in getting things done, real things. So we should think of, for instance, age-appropriate chores that kids could actually do even within the house. We should encourage them to pursue their own interests. When kids pursue their interests, they feel good about themselves, and eventually it builds their self-esteem. We should try to make sure that the love we show these kids is unconditional. So we don't only show them love when they do the right things, or they perform very well in a task, or they do what is expected. Unconditionally, we should show them that love. So in case a child doesn't perform well in a particular activity, let's try to encourage the child. Let's show the child love, so the child is better prepared to take on that responsibility or task again, and the child won't feel bad about him or herself. The child would just have gotten that esteem to move on. Let's also make sure that the goals of the child are within reach. We shouldn't set high targets for kids knowing that they might not be able to meet up. We should offer, play with them. We should offer to play with them. We should have fun with them. We should make sure that we're a part of their lives. Let's try to give them that feeling that we care and we're a team in trying to actualize who they are. Let's encourage them towards independence. When a child feels independent, the child begins to have confidence in himself or herself, and that builds self-esteem. Let's refrain from insulting our kids. It's normal when the kids push you over the edge, they press those buttons and you become all furious. These are normal things, but let's try to control and balance ourselves. Let's not insult the child. Let's not shame the child. Let's not make the child feel bad, even when the child does things that are not, in line with what we expect. Remember, he's just a child. Let's make setbacks learning experiences for further opportunities for these children. So when children have setbacks in what they do, let's make them understand it's just an experience for them to forge further and an opportunity for them to do better. Then they feel good about themselves. Then they see setbacks from a point of view that it's just normal, so I could do better. Then their self-esteem is actually boosted. Let's also be wary of technology. We need family time. We need physical time with kids to build their self-esteem from a point of communication. In this day and age, we have abandoned technology everywhere, which is really affecting the opportunity to family time. It affects, physical activity, and it has a very serious effect on teenagers. Social media also has a way of building a negative perception in kids. We have social media platforms that are mainly gossip oriented, and sometimes you see a child is so full of esteem, and after some time he looks at a particular social media post about him and comments that are generated about his particular perception, and that wears him down. He begins to feel that the world is looking down on him. We have to prepare these kids to understand how to work against criticism as it affects their low esteem. Let's make them have the opportunity to create and show off their work. So as an educator, as a parent, if you have something that the child has done that is worthy of being placed around the house or placed in the learning environment, it should be placed for the child to always refer to it and feel good about himself. There are so many ways as parents and adults we can help our kids to having self-esteem. There are good and bad aspects of a high self-esteem. When we're talking about self-esteem, it could be low and it could be high. And when it's high, there are good aspects about it. It develops a kind of positive mental health in the kids, and they appreciate who they are. That begets confidence, and confidence leads to motivation, and that allows them to feel happy with themselves. And when they're happy, they're ready to learn. They cooperate with you in the learning environment, and as a parent, they try to want to do what would make them look good and feel good about themselves. It makes them happy with the world when they have self-esteem, and that makes them cooperate with the challenges of the world, and it equips them to face their problems squarely and take themselves to new challenges and be able to find solutions to these challenges. However, there's some bad aspects when kids have very high self-esteem. So as adults, we have to understand how we balance between that. Sometimes when kids have high self-esteem, they feel so full about themselves and they could become arrogant. They may not want to accept new ideas because they feel, I know everything, I'm full of myself. So we have to understand how we balance, a high self-esteem vis-a-vis getting the child to understand that he's just a normal human being who is doing very well. But that doesn't mean he should build in that arrogance and not accept new ideas. It could build a kind of superiority complex where the child feels he's better than everybody, and that may affect, when the child engages with his peers, he feels, he's better than everybody else, and that could limit his opportunities. It may not also allow the child to be ready to handle disappointment, because the child always feels I'm the best in everything I do, I can't fail, so we have to understand how to balance our kids. It also makes them self-centered sometimes, and that could affect learning and how they relate with everybody. Generally, our kids should be targeted to having good self-esteem. They should feel good about themselves, and that prepares them for the world. Thank you very, very much. As an assignment for my DME 102. The name is Shadi Saleh, a learner of the Sunshine Teachers Training Diploma Program